Hi, welcome or welcome back to my channel. So I completely forgot to record an intro for this video, so I'm going to try to do that now and then show clips for the reading for this reading vlog and then do my little wrap up. So if I'm wearing the same shirt in the wrap up part, it's because it's the same day. In an attempt to conquer my physical TBR and have a little fun, I thought I could ask my students if they wanted to pick a book for me to read that month. And I thought I would do two students. They could each pick a book. They could pick books that may own, but they're not on my radar. And that's exactly what happened. So it was really perfect. I picked two students. I asked if they wanted to pick books. They each picked one. I showed them pictures of the books that I own, and that's how they decided. So the first one is Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber. The student chose this one, I think, because it's one of her favorite books. So, and if you don't know what this is about, it's about this woman named Evangeline who the love of her life is getting married to somebody else, and she thinks that there might be like some kind of curse on him or something. So she goes to find the Prince of Hearts, who's a fate, and you're not really supposed to like make deals with them because they're dangerous. But she ends up striking a deal with him. It says, desperate to stop the wedding, Evangeline strikes a deal with the charismatic, immortal Prince of Hearts, but soon discovers that bargaining with Prince of Hearts is a dangerous game. He has plans for Evangeline, plans that will either end in the greatest happily ever after or the most exquisite tragedy. Lots of fairy tale vibes. Then the other student chose Wild Reverence by Rebecca Ross. This one also has been on my TBR, and I think it's part of the 26 books I want to read in 2026. But I've always been a little intimidated because of how big it is. And if you don't know what this one is about, I think it's in the same world as The Divine Rivals, a prequel of sorts. And it's about this god child. I'm genuinely like so happy they chose these books because these are books that have been on my TBR for a while, and if they hadn't picked it, I probably would not have picked them up. So this was perfect. I already asked a student for the next month of books, and she chose some really interesting ones too, which is great. I thought I would give you guys a little bit of a reading update on Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber. I already obviously love the world that she built. I loved it since I read Caraval. Her writing is magical and it just transports you to these beautiful storybook-esque worlds. And really, it's the most amazing escape world I could ever wish to go into. Whenever I feel like the world is getting too much, I love diving into one of her books. And specifically, Once Upon a Broken Heart, I obviously didn't know much about it going in. I just knew that it had Jax in it that we first saw in Legendary. And I knew that the main character's name was Evangeline and that she was heartbroken. And I mean, I didn't even really need to know that much just to pick up a Stephanie Garber book. I'm about a little less than halfway, and the wild ride I've already been on is insane. It starts out crazy. Starts out her looking for Jax to help figure out what's going on with the guy that she loves and to fix what she thinks is cursed or broken. Then just from that first moment, it's been a huge roller coaster. Emotionally, physically, she goes from one thing to another thing to another thing, and then we get Scarlet and Tella from Caraval. Scarlet, my favorite character. Then it takes us to, well, I don't want to spoil anything, but it takes us to another land. Then from there is this a whole nother roller coaster. It really has been nonstop. And it's been exciting. I loved it so far, and I cannot wait to keep reading and get to the end because seriously, I mean, it doesn't even feel like I got to the middle part. You know, sometimes like reading a book, it feels like you've read that much, but with this one, it hasn't even felt like I've read that much. It feels like it's just been go, go, go. Oh, also, Prince Apollo, that I saw pictures and he kind of looks like Adam Driver, I think. Yeah. But that was just like right out of left field too. really threw me off. There's also been some really amazing, beautiful lines in this, and so I thought I would read a couple of those to you guys right now. Like when she's first in Jax's, the Jack of Hearts chapel, the way she describes it is gorgeous. I think it's the Jack of Hearts Cathedral. But she says, everything was shockingly white. White carpets, white candles, white prayer pews of white oak, white aspen, and flaky white birch. Evangeline passed row after row of mismatched white benches. They might have been handsome once, but now many had missing legs, while others had mutilated cushions or benches that had been broken in half. Broken, broken, broken. That was one of my favorite descriptions. And then here, when she's talking about the fates, it says, in the stories, the fates were wicked gods that only wanted mayhem and chaos. But this was what people should have been scared of. And then she looks and sees what Jax had done per her request, might I add. Then there's this line that her mother tells her, or told her all the time. It says, I believe that there are far more possibilities than happily ever after or tragedy. Every story has the potential for infinite endings. I love that so much. Okay. This world feels like a modern fairy tale, but I'm loving it so far. I thought I'd give a little reading update. I started reading Wild Reverence by Rebecca Ross, and I really didn't know what to expect going into it. I thought I would experience a lot of like yearning and romance, and I haven't read The Divine Rivals yet. I still plan to get to it, but since one of my students did pick this book, I knew I have to read it. I think going into this blind was probably the best option for me because I have no idea what to expect. There's a lot of characters just starting out. So I'm really happy that there's a list of characters in the beginning of the book for me to reference, and then the whole magic system and constellations and how it all works. I'm about 5 chapters in, and it's been interesting. Hopefully it gets better. I don't want to say it's kept my attention, but it's intrigued, piqued my attention. So hopefully it just continues to get better and better and better until the next time. For Once Upon a Broken Heart, I understand why my student loves this. I've read the Caraval series and that the first book was a 5-star, maybe even a 6-star read for me. I love it so much. And this one was just as fun, just as magical. I love the worlds that Stephanie Garber creates. They are so magical, beautiful, whimsical. And this one has an added dose of like fairy tale. So I gave it a 4.5 stars. I think the only reason it wasn't a 5-star is because sometimes Evangeline is very optimistic and wants to believe the best in people, which is a good trait, but sometimes it got a little frustrating for me, and I think that's the only reason why it was a 4.5, not a 5-star. Am I going to continue on the series? Yes, I am. I need to go buy the second book and the third book right away. Now, for Wild Reverence by Rebecca Ross. This is huge. This is a really big book. In the beginning, when I started reading this, I thought that it was really slow and it wasn't catching my attention, and I was almost on the verge of DNFing it. But then when I got to, I think, Act 2, let me see. Yeah, by the time I got to Act 2, that's when it really just pulled me in and held me hostage, really, because The story is so gorgeous in a way that's like, I don't even know how to explain it because it's such beautiful writing. The love story between Matilda and Vincent is something that you would think that mythology is based off of. The heartache and the just, I don't even know how to explain it because it's just hauntingly beautiful and tragic and heartwarming and heart-wrenching, and but more importantly in this story, I think, is the other relationships in here, the ones that are the friendships and the family and the found family in this book is just is so lovable, and I really don't even think that I'm explaining it very well, but it was beautiful. In the middle, it did drag a little for me, so I ended up giving it a 4 stars. And there's a couple of spice scenes towards the end, which I felt like, I don't know, I didn't think that it actually needed to be in there. And then there's a storyline with this brother that felt a little like odd that it happened. I don't know. But so those are the things that made me drop it down a star. But genuinely, I loved this book. It did feel like a Greek tragedy mythology of like great proportions, and reminded me of something I'd have to read in one of my literature classes when I was in college. So both of these were amazing picks, and I'm really glad that my students picked them for me. And it took down 2 books from my physical TBR, which have been really high anticipated reads, and I'm so excited I did this and so happy I did it. What are some of the anticipated reads on your physical TBR for this year? I would love to know and see if maybe there's some overlap or find some new reads. So, thank you for joining me on this journey. Please like and subscribe for future content.